We can jump into a little bit of a deeper dive here. And, there's not really like a big article, but one thing we kind of got the vibe from in general was just a lot of times we talk about these stories and it kind of seems a lot of like doom and gloom type situations, which I guess maybe that last story was a little bit of. But there was a survey thing that went out, and I think this was in the UK, if I'm not mistaken, which I think, in Europe in general, they kind of take privacy a little bit more seriously or are familiar with it. And it was just about how much people don't know that's being tracked, which is kind of what we're trying to do with this show, but also what you can do. And a lot of people, like even my friends and people who watch this, will ask me like, well, what do you want me to do? How should I evaluate when I use a service or not? How do I know if I'm being taken advantage of or if my privacy is even completely out of whack? And so I kind of wanted to just like throw a few like random feeler questions out there on what do we all do to kind of protect ourselves to an extent? What kind of advice would you give to somebody who's just, getting their feet wet in terms of learning about privacy, understanding where their data is, taking a look? I'll start off with the one. I think almost everybody will probably have a Google account and probably have some social media account. And, Twitter, Google, Facebook, all of them will have like a tool for data export. And I would probably, first step is take a look at those tools. I think it's like takeout.google.com and Facebook has something or whatever. Go into those tools, download your information, and kind of just take a glance. And then you'll probably get a good wake-up call that this is really bad. And these are like the biggest companies that are doing it. And then there's a lot of smaller companies as well. And so that'll probably be the wake-up call that someone needs in order to start taking this kind of stuff a little bit more seriously. But that's probably your first step in terms of, really believing it rather than just kind of hearing about it and be like, yeah, it's either a lost cause or it's not. I don't think it's a lost cause. I think it's a cause that, maybe we're losing the battle on, but at least the war's not over is probably the best way to word it. But what did you guys think? I don't know if we have a screen on any of like the actual reports, but this page itself is pretty good. So if you're looking to improve your data literacy, reading up on how platforms gather your data, explore alternate platforms and things like that. But in general, anytime you use a service, you can always just type in like, company name, privacy review, or privacy policy, and things like that in order to get a little bit more information on it. But how do you guys kind of, when you sign up for a service or you try something out new, what would you do to kind of figure out or learn about how good or bad the service may be?
Well, I think it depends on number one where the service came from, right? And is it a trustworthy source? That's the first thing, especially if you're about to sign up. That's the most important thing. I actually always I have I guess a fake account, if I can call it that I use.
You got a burner account.
Yeah, burner account that I use that I not associated with anything else out there. And if they want me to sign up, well, I sign up with that account with I guess a fake name and a consistent name and try it. And if I'm really happy and there's no abuse, that is when I really sign up with my real account and whatnot. I mean, so again, some people, especially if you're signing up for a lot of them, it makes sense to have something like that. But otherwise, making sure that closing accounts is also given enough importance out there. What happens typically is you open an account and you completely forget about it, and then a few years later you realize that maybe service is compromised and your password is used in there, is exposed in the dark web, and then that is the same password you use for your real accounts, and then you realize there is an abuse that's happening out there, stolen and whatnot. So closing an account is as important as opening an account, especially if you're not using it. So there are two things here. One, protecting your information with providers, services, right? Known and unknown. Then where are you accessing them from? Devices, your laptops, your desktops, your mobile phones and whatnot. Both become equally important. How do you protect yourself from both of these? And there are some security elements and privacy elements you can do for each of these. We probably have to do a separate segment digging into each of these elements, how each individual can protect themselves from each of these devices. But at least on the services side, accounting side, it doesn't hurt to take a look at the data and what the vendor has about you. And occasionally, if you can, it makes sense to delete it. Before I deleted my Facebook account, I deleted all my Facebook data, and that clearing of that data and getting it off of it is as important as uploading the data.
I know one of the things I've done more over the last year, because of kind of getting more into how privacy is being abused. This sounds so ridiculously easy, but I mean, I just never did it before. Actually, read some of these policies, these privacy policies, before I sign up for something. Usually it's like, oh my, first of all, they make them to discourage you from ever even imagine trying to read through this stuff, because as soon as you see like the scroll effect, you're like, oh my God, really? But I think it's important. You really got to start reading these things, because there are a lot of things hidden in plain sight in these policies about what they can and can't do with your data. And when it becomes, even if they say it's your data, you can determine when it becomes their data by looking at those policies. I mean, we just talked about how Facebook basically ordered a cease and desist order for the dude that created the unfollow everything. Well, there's a reason that they really don't want that to happen, is because once you signed off on that policy, anything that was your data that you put through Facebook by way of a comment or a share or whatever, it's their data now. So, just start easy. Start by reading some of this stuff and seeing, do I really need this service? Do I really need, or am I cool with, this data escaping, and the possibility of that data being mingled with other data that they're buying to get a bigger picture of who you are? It's a whole different thought process. A year ago, 2 years ago, I wasn't thinking like this at all. But now I am, and I really do. And everybody does the Google yourself thing. You want to see what's out there on you. Well, you need to start, having that same mentality about finding out, what data is out there that somebody has on me, in terms of a system or one of these companies like Clearview, who is able to find data on you and leverage it in a way that you would have never imagined. I mean, maybe I think the most positive thing that came out of today is we're exposing companies like Clearview and how they operate and how they impact us. Because I'm sure I'm not the only one who didn't know there was a Clearview kind of company out there doing this. So I'm glad that we have, we have a lot of things that we find that are far from being positive, but I think they're important to discuss. And I also think finding out about certain things and certain companies is a positive, because now it allows people to have a better idea of who they should and what they should be looking out for.
Yeah, I mean, I might go a little extra, but Roger mentioned having like these alter ego, like fake profiles. I've got 2 or 3 of those that I use for pretty much everything, and even I'll protect their privacy. So like I'll make sure that those accounts for the fake guys are closing down. One of the best things I think is, I never used a password manager. I usually save everything to my Chrome browser and profile a couple of years ago, and then I got into like 1Password is what I use personally, but there's a lot of good ones out there. But from a security and privacy perspective, using a password manager is a good idea in general. But one of the better things that I found is you can sort like the list of saved passwords you have for the accounts that you have based on like last activity or last used when you last logged into that service, basically. And it's a good way to basically find and dig through, if I haven't accessed the service in over a year, over 2 years, do I really need that account? And so periodically, maybe like every 3-6 months or something like that, I'll just scroll to the bottom of the list of my all the saved passwords that I have, either for myself or the fake people that I have as well, that are added as like family members in this 1Password account. It's a very elaborate story that I got going on, but basically, you can dig in and find last or least used or most longest time since it's been used, and then log into that service and delete the account and send in a request. And so I think closing down old accounts is something that people kind of forget about because there's just so much. Not to plug a company, I guess, but there was a website that I stumbled across. It's called, I want to say saymine.com. We can probably put the link in the show notes. But basically what these guys do is you got to dig into their privacy policy themselves. I haven't used the service yet, but I just, a friend sent it over to me. but you connect like your email account, which is already kind of risky. So take that with a grain of salt. And what it'll do is it'll dig through your entire email, already risky. But it'll look through like all these registration emails and basically every domain you receive an email from. And it'll basically identify every domain, see if it's a service, and then basically say this company has an account on you because we see that, like, there's usually an email in your trash or archive that says like, thanks for signing up or whatever. And it'll say, all right, cool. Now, here's a one-click way to get to their data request and data deletion features, and you can opt it out. And so, not an endorsement of them because I haven't dug through the privacy policy themselves. Someone just told me about it yesterday, so I thought I'd pass it on if someone wants to try it out. But yeah, deleting old accounts is very, very good because there's not, if you're using something actively, it's kind of crazy to say delete the account that you actively use and find value from, right? There is a trade-off to some extent, but old dormant accounts, especially like I found accounts from like, early 2010s from like all these deal websites that had my accounts. And if I buy like one stupid item that was like 30% off that I never used and probably lost, and that company has an account on me, but it's like a shopping website. So of course they're sharing their website information with other people. It's just a whole mess of stuff, and deleting old accounts is probably arguably the easiest thing. So even if you went into your own email and didn't use the service and just found your oldest emails that you have of, thanks for signing up, you just search that in your email account, you can probably get a good amount of accounts cleaned up that way too.
And the tools you use matters a lot. Tools in a lot of cases get you a lot. I mean, for example, I don't have Chrome installed on any of my devices, and whenever I had to install for some reason, I deleted it after the usage. When I've had my desktop for I think at least 3 years now, I never logged into my Google account from that device, at least in the last 3 years. And if I had to access some privacy abuse services, I use a different browser, dedicated browser. For example, I have Brave, and I configured Brave, which I allow the browser. It's a privacy protecting browser. And if I have to search something for Google for some reason, then I open up Brave, do a quick search, and then be done with it. Because my default is Ecosia or Duck. I kind of switch between the two. And then on the mobile, if I have to visit Google, I don't use any of the default ones, and I basically have Firefox Focus. It only is a one session,
that's good.
single thing.
That's really good.
Firefox Focus is really good. So I use that, single use. It automatically clears everything, and then you're done with that session. And that keeps me honest too, where I don't want to have a lot of tabs lingering around who in the background keep collecting that information. Those are all various things that are available.
This is great. I'm so glad we ended on this note because I think all this stuff, these are helpful things. These are, I think, positive things. And sometimes, when you get in the guts of this privacy stuff, we find a lot of stuff that's not very positive. But I think these are things that people can take away and start putting in practice right away to help them get a better understanding of how they can protect themselves. So I'm glad we finished on a note like this today.
Yeah, I can't emphasize that Firefox Focus enough. That thing is just like, there's so many like small searches you do that you're like, oh, I don't want this in my Google history or my search history because it's just like a small one-off search you want to do. It's a quick thing. The only thing I wish is there was like an iOS like widget or something for it to access it a little bit better, but I'm sure these guys will come up with it at some point. But yeah, like so many one-off searches, great, clears everything out, privacy friendly, and everyone's using it. So it's a good thing. So
I love Brave.
I
absolutely use Brave. I still do have Chrome because a lot of the stuff I do, they say you have to use Chrome. But I'm using more. A percentage of my activity is going through Brave. It's increasing at a pretty fast rate, and I love the fact that you just feel a little bit better about you don't see ads, and their stance on privacy is really easy to understand.
And I like the fact that they're coming up with a search service. That's an important one. You think Duck or Ecosia and all these search engines are similar, but they're not. Basically, it's Bing at the back end. If you're using DuckDuckGo or if you're using Ecosia or any of the other search engines, it's Bing at the back end. But I like Brave because they are building their own search index and whatnot.
Yeah, from scratch.
It takes some time to get better. But I occasionally keep using it, and I think that's the right move.
Me too.